Hello and welcome back to another episode of the Smart Start Recreational Therapy Insights YouTube series by Smart CU's Hub. I'm your host, Nathan Lamaster, the founder of Smart CU's Hub. And folks, we are on to episode number 42. Yes, we are in the last 10 episodes of the year-long series that we've been putting together and releasing every single Monday at 7 a.m. Central of all things RT. Obviously, in 52 topics, we talked about a lot of things, but there's still a lot more to talk about, and various guests that we can have on and other cool things that we have for the future. Guys, if you have been liking this series and you haven't already hit that like and subscribe button, please do. Not only will it help us as a channel grow, it'll also help you get the content more often and regularly in your inbox and in your subscriptions. But it'll also help people that are other rec therapists or clients or legislators or anybody that you're trying to get to know more about the field and what we actually do as recreational therapists to be more informed. So guys, I've enjoyed putting these together for you. Today's topic is a very applicable topic to all settings, I think, in recreational therapy, and that is creative problem solving. So, we will be diving in on how to unlock innovation when working with clients and with settings and facilities that are very diverse. We will be looking into what to do in budget limitations. So what can you do to be creative? Building rapport with clients. We'll be talking about that so that their buy-in is there. Obviously, if their buy-in's there, they will have better outcomes. And we'll be seeing how creative problem solving is an essential part of what we do every day as recreational therapists. So without further ado, let's dive on in. All right, why creative problem solving matters in recreational therapy. In RT, we often see situations where the textbook solution, the thing that we learned in school, isn't going to work perfectly for the client that we're serving and with the goals that they have and the different interests that they have, because every person we work with is unique, right? So in school, it was really helpful to learn, for instance, what are some of the considerations for somebody who uses a wheelchair, or what does this diagnosis typically mean physically or cognitively for clients, or we might even have learned different interventions that have evidence behind them, so evidence-based practice stuff that works for a specific instance. However, because not every person is the same, like I just said, we will have to learn how to think outside the box sometimes, but utilize that information that we learned in school to give us a better way of making informed, critical thinking-based decisions of what we're going to do. It might not be the exact same intervention, but it might be something that's slightly tweaked to work with this person. So that is what we're going to be talking about today. And creative problem solving does four things, right? It helps increase client engagement, okay, because we can work with their specific interests and their specific needs. They're going to have more buy-in in the process and more enjoyment and get in a state of flow. Personalized care, obviously, it's individualized. Therapeutic outcomes, so if we're trying for a certain outcome and we're going for it, right, this creative problem solving might give us a better way to achieve those results that we're actually after. And it also helps with when we're working with other people that are in other disciplines. So for instance, occupational therapists might be working with somebody who is learning how to brush their teeth again. And maybe during that process, what they found is that their grip, they're not able to grasp things that are small. So they built a bigger handle, all right? A bigger handle that made like a solution to being able to grab onto the toothbrush. Now, what as a recreational therapist might we use a bigger handle for in what we're doing and the goals that we have? Let's say that the client also enjoys painting, right? That's a easy, transition to this, right? So let's say you have a handle that can change heads, for instance. You have your toothbrush head, you got your paintbrush head. you got your pen head, you got whatever the thing is, right? And that tool you're being able to use to adapt whatever the thing is to what you're trying to do with the client. So next thing we're going to do is we're going to talk about the 4 stages of creative problem solving. So there are 4 stages in this process, and we're going to break down each of them so you can kind of determine what to do at each of these stages so that you're on the right path. Okay, so the first step, clarify the challenge. Okay, you're going to need to know what the real issue is. Okay, pinpoint the problem. And the way that we do that as recreational therapists is we do an assessment. So this could be the initial assessment when we meet a client, or an assessment later down the line that we do. But we're going to find things out like, okay, what are their interests? What are their ability levels? Like, are we doing things that are going to be working on physical mobility? Are we going to be doing things that work on cognitive skills or social skills? Or what is the thing that we're specifically working on? And then also create stepping stones towards that goal, right? So there might be things that need to take place before we're able to do other things. Like, for instance, the client wants to be able to do karaoke, but they can't talk. And maybe they can't talk because they had a stroke. All right, so we're going to be working on building those neural pathways, or creating ways to communicate, or doing something, creating some sort of adaptive equipment that allows them to work on building what it is specifically that is not working in that circumstance. So maybe it's the vocal cords, maybe it's muscles, maybe it's the neuro pathway telling the body to do something. We'll be able to figure out what that thing is and start working on baby steps to address it. Okay, so that is the first step. We're figuring out what the issue is, and we're working on, okay, now we know what we need to do. The next step, right, is where you generate ideas. Now, you might have some that come to your head because you've been working in the field for some time and you've seen what works. But sometimes you run into that whole writer's block or creator's block or whatever, RT block. And what I like to do sometimes, because I don't know about you, but my brain goes like 50 miles an hour. Okay, so what I like to do is I like to do this thing called the word vomit exercise. So what that is you find a whiteboard or a piece of paper or something you could write on, and you just blah. That means you take all those ideas and you put them out on there. You're not giving any judgment to what is the best idea, how it will work. You're not giving anything, any qualifiers to any of those ideas other than you think that they might work. And when you do that and you allow yourself to just freely put that out there, right? You're allowing your brain to get everything from in here visually in front of you. That's when you can start really analyzing, okay, which is of these things or which couple of these things is the most feasible to me for us to be able to address this particular problem or this goal that we have. Okay, and that's when you start developing and refining the solutions. Okay, you might need to think about what materials that you don't have that you will need, right? Or equipment. It could be who's involved. Like, is it just the client and yourself, or is this a group activity? Is this something that you're going to need another discipline in there with you to co-treat? And then what adjustments might you need to do to that thing, whether it could be adaptive equipment or changing the program a little or figuring out some sort of way for that person to be able to use whatever it is you're working on with them in the best way possible. So this is the stage where you're doing that. Okay, the next thing is now you're ready to implement. So you have the idea and you have, or maybe a couple ideas, and you're ready now to do the thing. Okay, so just because an idea starts out in your head and you think it's a good idea doesn't mean that it always is, right? We are human beings. We are trying different things. It's the practice of recreational therapy, right? We're practicing. We're not perfect, right? And so what I like to tell people at this place now is to fail fast and fail forward, okay? If you are going to fail, but obviously succeed if possible. But let's say that there's something that didn't work, right? And you're able to do that and realize that early on. That means you're able to adapt early on and adjust and figure out what might work. Could be doing a completely different thing, or it could be just changing it slightly. Or maybe there was something you didn't realize was going to be a limitation, that now you're like, okay, now I need to address that. Okay, so that's the type of thing you're doing at this stage, is when you're evaluating and you're changing action based off of what you find out. All right, so some real world examples of RT. These are things that you might actually run into because it's decently common. Okay, so for instance, a client in a wheelchair. We serve a lot of people that use wheelchairs, and they may have wanted to garden. So let's say before they came to the hospital, they got in a car accident. Now they're in a wheelchair, but they're not able to bend forward too far because they'll fall out of the wheelchair, and that's unsafe. Okay, but they still want to be able to participate in gardening. And so what we could do in that case, we could think, okay, well, is this an equipment thing, or is this a rehab thing that we're trying to work with? Well, it could be a combination, or might be as simple as, let's just create or build an elevated flower bed, okay, so that they can reach for it at a level that's accessible for them, which is doable for them, and they're able to do the thing, right? That could be just a simple adaptation of something in their environment that can help them to do that thing that they enjoy, that will give them that dopamine rush or whatever else they're going for in that case, okay? The hobbies that we do, okay? Let's say we're working with somebody who's nonverbal. That also happens, okay? That could be because of a stroke. It could be because they're born that way. It could be that they have autism. It could be a lot of different things that are causing that. And the thing might not be a cognitive part of them. They might not be like able to say the words, but they might be able to think. And obviously they're thinking, they just can't communicate verbally. So that could be a time where you're teaching them a thing like sign language. Like maybe you know sign language and you're able to teach that to them. That would be a great tool for them to utilize to be able to do life. Okay. It could be that you get a communication board for them. So you either buy one or you print one out online that they can use temporarily, and it allows them to point to different things that are pretty common needs. Like, I need to go to the bathroom. I need to do this. I like you. I don't like you. I have a question, whatever the thing is, and they point to the thing on the board. And there's even fancier ones where you can type in stuff. Okay, so that's another tool that can be used to adapt. Or maybe you're doing a music group and you're wanting to do a call and response. So maybe you're working on memory, but they're nonverbal. And so you're like, okay, so I want you to remember this rhythm. Do this after me. Da, 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 da. And then they do it. Da, 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 da. Okay, and through that, you're building that repetition and you're building the other part of their brain, like the hippocampus, that has to do with memory. Okay, so that could be the goal you're specifically working on, and you're just adapting it to their current being, whatever they're at that point. Could also be a space problem, right? So your facility sometimes isn't a large facility and doesn't have outdoor space, but you want to incorporate some sort of fitness or physical activity in the treatment. And so what you could do is utilize one of the hallways and make it into a fitness path. Now, there could be things that are, things you're going to have to think about. One is, what kind of fitness can I actually do in this hallway? It could be just walking. It could be you go to this particular part that doesn't have a lot of people, and the part of the fitness is you try to do a wall sit, or you do sit-ups, push-ups, whatever the thing might be. And obviously, the more physically able they're able to do those things, that would be more appropriate than, or if it was something for someone in a wheelchair, you might adapt something to where it's something on the wall that they pull and they're doing an arm exercise, whatever the thing might be. Okay, so just think creatively outside the box and think about what you can do with what you are given. Obviously, rec therapists aren't known for big giant budgets given to our departments. So we have to make do a lot of times, and there's been some really creative ways people have thought through their limitations and how to overcome them. Okay, so the beauty in creative problem solving is that it invites your team, the client as well, and in anybody else that is a stakeholder into the process, which means they have buy-in. And buy-in is really important if you want somebody to want to do the thing. Okay, there's so many times where somebody has to go to physical rehab, they go to the PT or the OT, and in that setting, they're like dreading going to the gym that's indoors because they really don't want to do it, right? But in RT, we don't have to be limited by the gym. We can be utilizing all types of things, especially things that might be already of interest to the client, to achieve similar or if even better results because they're actually doing the thing. All right, now we're going to talk about some creative techniques to spark some ideas. So sometimes we don't know what to do. We hit that creative block in our heads where we're like, I don't know what I can do to address this particular need the client has. Okay. Now, there are some ways that you can do various things to get your mind to start thinking about things in a different way. Now, that could be as simple as doing what we talked about earlier with the word vomit, where you put everything out on a whiteboard or paper and you start just putting it out there and not giving any heed to judgment of those ideas until they're all out. And then you start working through that process of refining and everything. Okay, that's one method. Another method could be role reversal. So you just simply go up to the client and ask them, okay, so these are your goals. This is what you said you want to do. Okay. I'm kind of stuck with an idea here. What is something that you enjoy doing? And then they kind of give you an idea of that thing that maybe that they're going to have buy-in with. And then you think about how that thing could be used if it's possible. Obviously, if it's not something that's going to address the goal that you have for the client, then we got to think of other things. But at least it'll get some ideas of coming from the person of, okay, maybe I could try something like that. That's just another way to spark some imagination, some creativity. Mind mapping is another one, right? So in a particular case, let's say that you meet somebody and you have different categories. Let's say you have different bubbles that you're putting out there. And in this bubble, it is the diagnosis. In this bubble, it is the interest of the client. In this bubble, it is the counterindications. In this bubble, it is what equipment that I have or have access to, or space, whatever. You see what I'm saying? You take these bubbles and then you figure out how they can connect to each other. So visually, sometimes when you put this out in front of you and you have all the things, all the different parts you're kind of working on together, you could start sparking some ideas that way to figure out, if I do this, then all these things should be addressed. I've considered all these parts. And that could help you come up with a really cool idea. A lot of people do it that way. So these are just some ideas to help you spark some thought. Another great one is going on Facebook or social media where there's like recreational therapy groups. And obviously with HIPAA in mind, you put out the question to the group and you kind of hear from other recreational therapists of what they might do or something that they've tried that's worked. And that could be a great way to spark some ideas. Then there are textbooks, workbooks, things that are put out there for therapists to utilize to give them even more ideas. All right, so now we're on to the wrap up and takeaways for today. These are the things that I want you to think about as you go about your week. Okay, so creative problem solving is more than just a skill. It's a mindset. It's how you think about things. It's your ability to think. Okay, it isn't just like I can do this thing. It is how you think. Okay, and we need to be flexible, right? Because not every person is the same. Sometimes something happens mid intervention or our group, and we got to change things, okay? And we need to know why we're doing what we're doing, and judge whether or not this is the appropriate action to take in the future if this thing ever happens again. And this allows us to create a truly personalized experience for the clients that we serve. All right. I want you this week, challenges for you. Are you ready for some challenges? I got some challenges. All right. One is think beyond your constraints. Okay. Creativity thrives when resources are limited. And maybe some of you can identify with that growing up in an area that didn't have a lot of things like where I grew up. And you had to be creative with your friends to find out cool things that you could do. Whether that be making a fort out of a bush or, going down the street and playing some sort of massive capture the flag event, using people's houses as like ways to hide. I don't know. Something outside the box. But you could do that in your hospital or your facility a lot of the times. Obviously, check with the rules. Make sure that you're not breaking any of those. But you could start thinking about things in a very different way when you do it like this. Okay. Also involve your clients this week. Involve them in the process. Get their buy-in. Therefore, they'll give you a lot of cool ideas and they'll help you to be effective with helping them. Okay. And then use those idea tools that we talked about earlier, where it was the word vomit or the mind mapping or the role reversal, those types of things, to help create some ideas and stir some juices in the head. Okay. All right, guys, thank you so much for watching this episode. I hope that you are thinking of things a little differently now. You're thinking about how you can be more creative in how you create your interventions and how you work with clients. That is a key skill of recreational therapists and something that we can grow in. And therefore, as we're growing, we're helping our clients even more. Guys, thank you so much for watching the episode. Again, I said at the beginning, please hit that like button, that subscribe button, and that notification bell. And that will help out the channel a lot to appeal to YouTube's algorithm, which will help it to show to other rec therapists and other people that are interested in what we do as rec therapists. I would love for these to be more utilized within our profession. Again, 52 episodes almost. That is a lot of different things, and there's a lot more growth that we can do in the future even. Guys, in the comment section below, if you enjoyed this, please tell me one way that you have been creative in your practice. So what did you do to address a particular problem that you were facing, environmental, client, whatever, and how did you do it? And I hope that information, other rec therapists read it and they can learn from it as well. Guys, have a great week. Happy Monday. And as always, recreational therapists, before I forget, wanted to tell you the teaser for next week. We're going to be going into workplace communication and team dynamics. So, if you work with others, that's the episode for you. And guys, thank you so much. And as always, rec therapists, see you next week. Stay classy.